morning, everybody. Today I'm making Turkish Delight. I don't think people really get the true delightfulness of this candy. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just boiling 1 cup of water for the sugar syrup, and I'm just dry roasting my 3/4 of a cup of pistachios. And it's important, you don't want to burn these nuts. So keep a close eye on them. Toasty, toasty nuts. I think these are done. So I'm gonna put these aside. The water has come to a boil, so I'm just going to add now 3 cups of white sugar. It's a lot of sugar. And 3 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. So we're just gonna dissolve all that sugar. All right, so my sugar syrup is at a rolling boil. What we wanna do is just cook it for a few seconds, then I'm gonna turn it down to medium. And it's still gonna be at a boil, just at a lesser heat. It's getting a little bit foamy on the top as well, which is okay. And you wanna be really careful when you're dealing with that hot sugar like this. You could really burn yourself severely. So just make sure that you're very careful. So I'm just checking my syrup every couple minutes just to see how thick it is. I've never done this before, so I'm not 100% sure how long this first boiling process is gonna take. Basically what we're looking for is when you're mixing the liquid, when you pull it back, that it kind of crawls back slowly across the bottom of the pan. I have it on medium, so it's still at a nice sort of, not a rolling boil, but just a bubbling. So it's cooking away. I understand why Turkish Delight is so expensive. This is quite a process. I think this is one of those recipes that you just have to give yourself an afternoon or a morning to do it. Take your time. One of the fun parts too is having to source your ingredients. I'm very lucky in that I live in a neighborhood that has a huge Persian and Iranian population. I got this rose water and this orange blossom water right here. We have a bunch of stores in North Vancouver that have great produce and all kinds of things like this. Spices, anything that you could want to make Middle Eastern food. It's great. So didn't have to go too far to find my 2 waters there. All right, so this is starting to thicken up a little bit. I think we probably still have another 10 minutes, I'm gonna say, because this really needs to reduce quite a bit. All right, I'm just gonna move on to the next step. Instructions say it shouldn't go a caramel color, but mine sort of has. So I'm not overly concerned about it. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do the next step, which is taking 1 cup of cornstarch and mixing it into 1 1/4 cup of cold water. I'm gonna mix that up with my whisk, nice and smooth. Yeah, it's definitely changed color. I'm not so sure about these instructions, but whatever. This is a fun experiment. So I'm gonna reduce the heat to low. Add this cornstarch mixture. Ooh. I'm stirring constantly. From what the recipe says, I kind of need to cook this for about an hour. The instructions didn't make it 100% clear if I'm supposed to just stand here for an hour and stir this. Seems excessive, but you know, it's looking really weird. Look at that. I do not purport to know what I'm doing on this recipe. This is a 100% experiment. And apparently the way you know it's done is when the mixture completely detaches from the bottom of the pan. So it almost like forms itself into a ball of, for lack of a better word, dough. So that's what I'm looking for. This is definitely some hot goo. Kind of looks, has the texture of slime, like from Ghostbusters maybe? It's very gloppy. All right, I'm gonna stop playing with it and just let it cook. So I have 2 little 6-inch square pans. What I've done is I've just cut parchment paper to line the bottom and the sides for each. So basically what I did was I used a little bit of vegetable oil. I just brushed it on the bottom and the sides just to make sure that the parchment paper adhered. And then I just sprinkled and spread a little bit of cornstarch on the bottom of the pan. It's been cooking for maybe 20 minutes, maybe? I'm not really sure what it's exactly supposed to look like when it's done. The instructions say that it should kind of like detach itself, like it should be not stuck to the pan anymore. As you can see, it's still pretty stuck. So I feel like we are getting close. I'm understanding a little bit better what it's talking about when it says it detaches from the bottom of the pot. As I'm stirring it, I can really see that like the entire sort of surface of the mixture is coming off the pot. It's not sticky in a tacky way anymore. It's more sticky in sort of a solid mass. Hard to describe. It's hard to describe. This is definitely not an awesome recipe for the lazy baker, but it's an awesome experiment for the you know, stubborn baker. But I think this is ready. I think it's ready. I don't know. That is a very large, slow-moving ball of glop. I think it's ready. What I'm doing now is I'm just dividing this. I'm just dividing this in two and putting them in 2 bowls so that I can flavor them. So I'm going to do 1 rose water and I'm going to do 1 orange blossom water. I just hope this is cooked enough. What I'm going to do is make my rose water one. It calls for 1 tablespoon. And the recipe also said don't be shy with putting the color in. This is what I have so far. I'm really having to give it a really good little mix here. Candy is still very hot because it just came off the stove. The rose water did cool it down just a little bit, but not much. I have to attempt to put this super sticky goo into this tiny little pan. Maybe I need a spatula for this. Got one. So sticky. There, let's do that. It is very, very, very sticky. But I will say, once you put the rose water in there and the color, it does kind of loosen it up a little bit, so it's a little bit more spreadable. That looks cool. Looks like sort of liquid candy floss. Well, as you can see, I've got a little blob in there, trying to stick it down. I'm thinking what I might do is actually just put a little cornstarch on my fingers and press it down. I'm gonna see how hot it is. It's a little bit warm, but it's not that bad. Because it's gonna be covered in cornstarch anyway, so why not just do this? Got a weird texture. So hard to smooth this down. I think this is the easiest way though, is just to have a little bag of cornstarch beside you and just use your fingers to press it down. So as you can see, I've just put it here in this little pan and I'm going to put it aside, wash my hands, and then on to the second one. Next, what I'm doing is this one using the orange blossom water. So I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of that right now and a few drops of this green food coloring. And I have to add the pistachios as well. Where did I put the pistachios? Oh, they're right in front of me. Oh God, have some more coffee. Oh, that green is actually quite nice. See that, but it's like a science experiment. Oh, so pretty. This is so pretty. Oh, love it. Just get it in there. This really does look like green slime, I've got to say. Cornstarch, and I'm just pressing it down into the pan. And there's the second one. And I hope I cooked it long enough. I hope that in 24 hours when I go to cut it, that it is solid enough. That really is the thing. I'm going to cover them in tin foil once they've cooled completely. Part 2 is tomorrow when I come back to cut them. Greetings everybody, I am back to cut my Turkish Delight. They look pretty great. They feel fairly solid. I have no idea what it's supposed to actually be like, so everything here is new to me. What I have here is a mix of icing sugar and cornstarch. So I'm just mixing that up. And basically, this is what we're gonna toss the cut pieces of Turkish Delight. Guys, in. Bowl is not for you. So this is what we're gonna toss the cut up pieces of Turkish Delight so that they don't just all stick together and glom into one big ball. My next step here is to cut the Turkish Delight. I'm just gonna pull this out. Interesting. And I have a very, very sharp knife, so I'm just going to cut it. And dude, good start, good start. It's staying together. So I'm just gonna cut it into small little squares. If you find that your knife is sticking to the Turkish Delight, you can always just use a little bit of oil, just brush a little bit of oil on your knife. I'm finding I don't really need to, so it's not a big deal. So now all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna toss these in this mixture of icing sugar and cornstarch, give them a little toss, and then throw them in this other bowl that the cats have thoroughly investigated. Mixing it up. So essentially, this is what it looks like. Just have a look at that. That looks fantastic. What do you think? I'm now ready to give these a try. First of all, I would just like to point out just how pretty they are. This is the rose water one. It's an interesting texture. Maybe it could be a little bit more gelatinous, just a little bit. Flavor-wise, I'm just not that familiar with rose water, so I'm not really sure what it should taste like. It tastes sweet. It tastes good. It tastes good. I wouldn't say that I'm wild about it, but it does taste good. Now, I'm going to try one of the pistachio ones. Here is this one, up close and personal. Definitely like it better with the nuts. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid first attempt at Turkish Delight. Taste-wise and texture-wise, I feel like I need to buy some authentic Turkish Delight to compare it to, because it was 10 years ago I was in Turkey and I can't quite remember what the super authentic stuff tasted like. Sugar and cornstarch, you can't go too wrong. So if you give this recipe a shot, let me know in the comments, and happy baking, everyone.